According to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, generic drugs are identical or within acceptable range to the brand names. Dr. Timothy Tyler, the Director of Pharmacy Services for the Comprehensive Cancer Center at Desert Regional Medical Center in Palm Springs, examines aspects of generic drugs.
Generic medication is something that the FDA has given us some guidance on. For example, there's a brand name, and that's what many patients and physicians, clinicians, know as drug X. Drug X actually has another name. It's not the brand name, it's the technical name, the generic name. And again, once the patent exclusivity of a drug ends, maybe it's 17 years, then you can see brand X and you can see the generic name, the generic version of brand X. So really, when patients are looking at the medications that they're filling, a brand name drug is usually at a premium price. So what are we paying for? You're paying for the marketing of that drug, you're paying for a lot of the research and development of all the drugs that that company has. So there's a lot of money tied up into that. Typically though, for I would say 99+% of drugs in America today, those drugs are actually different only in the excipients, fancy word for all the binders and other things they put in the medication. So a patient could be on their brand name drug, be switched to the generic, and not a single thing would happen. It's exactly the same. It has the same standards the FDA has for the brand name. One thing that may change is the color may change. The tablet size may change. Generally speaking, a generic is a great way for patients to access the medication and not pay a premium price. And insurance companies are very savvy to this. That's why insurance companies would prefer to use the affordable drug. They can incentivize this by perhaps giving you a lower copay. If you go with the generic, it's a $2 copay. If you want the brand name, we'll do it. You'll need to pay for 50% of it, or you'll need to pay a $20 copay. So certainly there are ways that insurance companies are obviously trying to direct some of that.
Dr. Tyler discusses the safety of generic drugs.
As far as I'm concerned, they're safe. However, there's a small little asterisk. The caveat is if a patient has been switched from one medication, a brand name, to a generic, and they've noticed something has changed, obviously the patient shouldn't discount that entirely. That's something to talk to either your pharmacist or your physician or both. One thing I can also suggest is that when certain medications that have what we would call an incredibly narrow therapeutic window, we don't like a patient to be on brand X, then the generic, then back to brand X. If it's a really tightly controlled drug where we're trying to keep a level in just a very narrow window, there can be slight variances in those excipients. Sometimes those can influence minute changes. So in that case, we would certainly prefer pick one and stick with it. The pharmaceutical industry in the United States is incredibly strong. As time has gone on, the costs of some of these medications is prohibitive. The machinery, the physical plant can be the upwards of hundreds of millions of dollars. So really, many times this is outsourced to other countries. And the FDA will not allow a drug to be sold in the United States that is not inspected. There are guidelines to suggest what's safe and what's not. So for example, a drug may come from India. It may come from Mexico. It could come from Puerto Rico. These are all things that you couldn't get the medication unless it were safe, had passed the standards that the FDA considers. And the FDA has got the highest standards of any governing body in the world.